wonderful opportunity to be part of the Param Vedanta School of Ancient Wisdom series on the Bhagavad-Gita. And today we have reached the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. Certainly among all the chapters of the Bhagavad-Gita, this can be called as one of the most difficult chapters. Fairly long chapter with about 35 verses. Many of them are very challenging verses. And if you will see, most of these are Upanishadic level of verses. That means until the 12th chapter, it was going easy. Suddenly it looks like we're going uphill. And to be able to speak anything on this chapter, to be able to speak anything on Vedanta, it is thanks to our Acharya, Swami Paramarthananda. He is Sakshat Dakshina Murti to us. He is a living Dakshina Murti. And if there is something that you would pick up from the reflected glory of this great teacher, begin with prostration to Swamiji. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om. We will have a sort of a dialogue, and I will be asking Chethana a series of questions. And as we come to the 13th chapter, so we will, Swamiji always talks about shatkams. So Chethana, can you tell us how the Bhagavad Gita has been divided?
Okay. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. This entire discussion in the Bhagavad Gita is on the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. Based on this, the Gita is divided into 3 parts or shatkam. The first shatkam, consisting of first 6 chapters, is called Prathama Shatkam. Then from the 7th to the 12th chapter, it is the Madhyama Shatkam. And from the 13th to the 18th is Charama Shatkam or the Antima Shatkam. And in each Shatkam, 3 main topics are highlighted. So in the first Shatkam, the Jiva Swarupam, or the nature of the individual, is discussed. This is the Tvam part of the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. The second topic discussed is Karma Yoga as a sadhana. And the third topic is the importance of the individual effort or prayatna. Thus, Jiva Swarupam, Karma Yoga and Prayatna are the 3 topics in the Prathama Shatkam. Then in the Madhyama Shatkam, from the 7th to the 12th chapters, Krishna shifts the focus to another 3 topics. They are Ishvara Swarupam, or the Tad Padartha of the Mahavakyam Tattvamasi. Second topic highlighted is Ishvara Upasana Yoga. And the third topic discussed is the importance of Ishvara Anugraha or grace, because effort is just not enough. We need God's grace too. Finally, in the Antima or the Charama Shatkam, here also 3 topics are highlighted. First one is the essential oneness or the aikyam of Jivatma and Paramatma, which is the Asi part of Tattvamasi. To understand this essential oneness, we need to practice Jnana Yoga. This is the second topic. And then the third topic discussed is the importance of values. Thus, the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the beginning of the last Shatkam, the Charama Shatkam, where 3 topics highlighted are Aikyam, Jnana Yoga, and values.
Thank you very much. How does the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita begin?
So this chapter begins with Arjuna asking for clarification on 6 technical terms. What is Kshetram? What is Kshetrajna? What is Prakriti? What is Gneyam? What is Purusha? And what is Jnanam? On scrutiny, even though 6 topics are mentioned by Arjuna, they can be reduced to 3 topics. The words Kshetrajna, Purusha, and Gneyam talk about the same principle, the Atma. The words Kshetram and Prakriti are the same as Anatma. And the 6th topic, Jnanam, are values that one must acquire to attain self-knowledge. Thus, the 3 topics essentially discussed in this chapter are Atma, Anatma, and Jnana. And
the next question I'm going to ask, and I will answer it myself. So there are many of you listening. We have been studying the Gita for so long. How many verses are there in the Bhagavad Gita? You will see if you check the books on the Bhagavad Gita, most books will have 700. Some books have 701. Why is this variation between 700 and 701? It has something to do with the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is a nice information that of the 700 verses, Shri Krishna has spoken 575. Arjuna's verses are 85 because a large part of the first chapter is Arjuna's. Sanjaya begins to conclude, and in the Vishwarupa Ishvara, where both Arjuna and Krishna stop talking, Sanjaya gives a lot of description. So in the 18th chapter and in the 11th chapter, we have verses from Sanjaya. And of course, the Bhagavad Gita begins by a question from Dhritarashtra to Sanjaya about what exactly is happening on the battlefield. And that is how the verses have been divided. If you look at this slide, you will see how the 700 or 701 verses are divided. The largest chapter is the 18th chapter with some 78 verses. The second largest is the beautiful summary. So actually, the second chapter and the 18th chapter are the summary verses. You have a summary in the beginning and you have a concluding summary. So there is the second chapter gives a bird's eye view of the entire Bhagavad Gita. The 18th chapter is a nice summary once again. So actually, the first chapter gives the introduction to the problem. So of the 18, if you remove these three chapters, we have the real teaching coming in the 15th chapter. Of course, both the second chapter and the 18th chapter have a lot of Gita values. You will see this 13th chapter in some books have got 34 verses and in some book have got 35 verses. Why is there an extra verse? If you can go back to the first question we began, many of the traditional books or the earlier books will not have this verse, Arjuna Uvacha, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva. Now this verse has been added on later on, because it is not there in the original. We are not sure exactly who, but it is possibly Madhusudana Saraswati. Madhusudana Saraswati was a great Acharya in Varanasi and who's written a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita called the Gudartha Deepika. The word Guda means, Gudartha means the hidden meaning. I'm going to put a lamp which illumines the hidden meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. And as part of the Gudartha Deepika, he introduced certain things which have become part of the Bhagavad Gita. One of the things he introduced were the Gita Dhyana Shlokas, and because they are so beautiful. And possibly the opening question of Arjuna, because Adi Shankara was commented on most of the verses. Most of the verses I'm saying because Adi Shankara's commentary starts from the 11th verse of the second chapter. Before that, he has just gives a gist of the first chapter. So there is no commentary on the first question of Arjuna. So some books will have 34 verses, others will have 35. So the first question asked to Arjuna, or Arjuna asks Shri Krishna is, what is Kshetram? Chethana, please.
Okay. An agricultural land or field is called Kshetram. So our physical body is compared to a field. Just as a conversion of a seed to a plant requires some land, and the fructification of, in the same way, the fructification of karma, the papa and punya requires a physical body. So in the second verse, Krishna refers to the body as Kshetram because it is our field of experience. This includes one's body and mind because these are instruments through which we experience the world. So all the objects of experience fall under the category of Kshetra. But we are attached to the body and mind the most. Because of this, we think that they are an integral part of ourself rather than the objects that are experienced. And objects that we use as an instrument may be felt as a part of you because of its closeness. For example, a pair of spectacles. So Shankaracharya also gives the following meaning for Kshetram. That which is subject to destruction is Kshetram. Shyati iti Kshetram. The term Shariram also means that which decays every moment. And the word Deha also means burnt or afflicted.
So this is the second verse, but in some places it becomes the opening verse when the Arjuna's question is not there, because it is in the same Anustup meter, and it becomes so relevant that Shri Krishna is answering. It becomes very nice to have a question related to this. So this is how Shri Krishna answers a potential question of Arjuna. And this is a very, these are very important verses. I will pause on them. Idam shariram kaunteya. So this whole chapter is called Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. Kshetra means the field of my experience. Kshetrajna is the one who knows about this field of experience. So this distinction between whatever I see and the one who sees, that is very important. And then who is this Kshetrajna? Chethana, please.
What or who is Kshetrajna? So the experiencer, the subject, is referred to as the Kshetrajna, which is the same as Atma, the consciousness principle. To transact in this world, one needs both the body and consciousness. Therefore, we are a mixture of Kshetram and Kshetrajna. Kshetrajna is also identical to Gneyam and Purusha, which will be discussed later.
The next verse that we are going to study, verse number 3, if you have Arjuna's question, is a Mahavakya. Now, before we go to the verse, can you tell us what is a Mahavakya?
Any statement which reveals the essential oneness of Jivatma and Paramatma is called a Mahavakyam. And the four main Mahavakyas are Prajnanam Brahma from the Rig Veda, Aham Brahma Asmi from the Yajurveda, Tattvamasi from Samaveda, and Ayam Atma Brahma from Atharva Veda.
Now, although there are 4 Mahavakyas, that means 4 named Mahavakyas, the Upanishads and the Bhagavad-Gita has many, many Mahavakyas. Whenever we come to a verse where there is a Mahavakya, as already explained by Chethana, a Mahavakya is a statement which equates us, our true nature, to that of the Lord. Any statement which says that the essential nature of the individual is the same as the essential nature of Bhagavan, that statement is called a Mahavakya. Although there are selected verses from the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and the Atharva Veda. Now, Adi Shankara not only gave an importance to, when he started the 4 mathas, the Rig Veda was the Jagannath Puri and was given the Rig Veda. The Sringeri was given the Yajurveda. Dwaraka in the west was Samaveda, and the Jyotirmat in the north was Atharva Veda. Accordingly, he put various of his disciples in charge of each of these mathas. Swamiji has told us something called the fundamental laws of Vedanta. Now, before we study the 13th chapter, it is very useful to understand what is this fundamental laws of Vedanta. These fundamental laws, if understood, Vedanta becomes very simple. If these fundamental laws are not understood, I will tell all students of Vedanta, first make an attempt to internalize what are these fundamental laws. Once these fundamental laws become an integral part of you, then Vedanta becomes simple, the 13th chapter becomes simple. Otherwise, the 13th chapter is very difficult to understand. If there is some reasons why we have to do a Sashtang Namaskara to Swami Paramarthananda, is for giving the emphasis on where we should focus. And one of them is to give a lot of importance to what is this fundamental laws of Vedanta. Chethana, please.
There are 2 main fundamental laws of Vedanta, according to Swamiji. The first fundamental law is, I am different from whatever I experience. And the second fundamental law is, all attributes I experience belong to the experience objects and not to me, the subject. Therefore, I am, as Atma, am attributeless, nirguna.
I will elaborate on this. Now, I see so many objects in front of me. I see a wall, I see some clothes, I see a bottle, I see a mug. Now, it becomes very easy to say all these are not me. And Swamiji says, I see a donkey or I see a dog, and I clearly know whatever I experience is not me. Now, I experience my body. I have to use the same logic. When I am experiencing my body, then whatever I experience is not me. It is something that I use just like I use my spectacles. I am someone other than whatever I experience. If I go by that logic, this body is not me. I am not my body. Now, that is a big jump in our understanding. I'm trying to explain the fundamental laws I have as I have understood. Therefore, I'm able to watch my mind trying to see the intricacies of this explanation. And as I can see the mind, I know I am not my mind. So what is this fundamental law? I am not my body. I am not my mind. Then who am I? I am the one who witnesses my body and mind. I function through this body and mind. I am someone who uses this body-mind as an instrument. So the first law is, I am other than this body and mind. And let us internalize this and see this. Because understanding that I am someone other than the body is the first and major step in understanding Vedanta. And that is what Shri Krishna again and again in this chapter says, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Vibhaga Yoga, in my opinion, is the most important thing you should be able to know. The next thing, although Chethana mentioned, I will elaborate on this. I, as Atma, I am Nirguna. That means I have no attributes. My body has attributes. Attributes means it has got certain descriptions by which it can be identified. My body has a certain shape, it has got a certain weight, it has got a certain color. So therefore, my body can be identified by my sense organs. That means through Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, through all my sense organs, my body can be identified. Now, I, the Atma, is something unique in that it has no attributes. It cannot be seen by my eyes, it cannot be heard by my ears, it cannot be tasted, it cannot be smelled, it cannot be felt. So it has absolutely no attributes. Now, whenever there is any attributes, there are certain limitations. When there are no attributes, there are no limitations. For example, my body was born on a particular day and my body will be there up till a certain period of time. So I am limited, or the body is limited by time, and therefore my body is Nitya. My body is located. I'm located in this particular place. And then I'm limited to this body. Whereas this Atma is, my body is Anitya. It is temporary. Whereas the Atma is Nitya. It is there for all time. The Atma or consciousness, which is the enlivening principle functioning through this body, is not limited to this body. Just like, although I speak with a cellular phone and it appears that the signals are in the phone, because the cellular network is all over the world. It is like that. I, as Atma, am all pervading, not only this world, I pervade the sun, the moon, the stars, the entire space. In fact, the entire space is within me as Atma. But then, although the cellular network is everywhere, it functions through my mobile telephone like that. For the time being, this ID of mine, it functions through. That is the relationship between body, mind, and Atma. Now, these are Mahavakyas. I am Atma Brahma. This is from the Mandukya Upanishad, verse number 2. So this is what we need to claim, that this body-mind is only an instrument. The body-mind is Kshetram, the field of my experience. I am Nirguna. I am limitless. The moment you see I'm limitless, then you suddenly realize my body has death, but I have no death because I'm there from the very beginning, if there is a beginning. I'm not limited to here, I'm everywhere. This understanding is an understanding of what enlightenment is. All of us, believe me, are not ordinary. Our body minds are ordinary. But as Atma, we are really extraordinary. We are divine. We are not human beings having an occasional spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings. We are I am Atma Brahma, functioning through a temporary body-mind. And that is why there is a sense of limitations, although we are limitless. To understand this, we need a few terms called Viveka, because this whole chapter is called Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Vibhaga, or Viveka. Chethana, please, what is Viveka?
Viveka means discrimination, but not in the negative sense as in racial or gender discrimination, not as partiality or favoritism, but in the scriptural word, the word discrimination means a sense of judgment, right understanding, or discernment. Now, there are three main types of Viveka: Sat Asat Viveka, Drik Drishya Viveka, and Sukha Dukkha Viveka.
All right, now becomes a difficulty. Sat Asat Viveka, that which is existent is Sat. Asat means, remember that prayer, Asatoma Satgamya. Now, when you say Asat means, normally we say Sat means truth and Asat means untruth. But when you come to Vedanta, Sat has got a totally different meaning. Sat is that which is existent all the time. Asat is that which is existent at some time and not all the time. For example, my body is available only when I am awake, or maybe when I am, when I dream, I am using some other body. And when I am asleep, I have nothing to do with this body. I have dissociated from my... So this body is therefore, does not come under the domain of Sat. My body becomes Asat. Now, Drik means the one, same as Kshetrajna. Drik means the seer. So the seer seen Viveka, only the conscious person can see, and therefore the seen is inert, the one who's conscious is Drik. And then there is Sukha Dukkha Viveka. Based on Sat Asat Viveka, Drik Drishya Viveka, Sukha Dukkha Viveka, we have our true nature as, my true nature as Atma is always present, always present. Therefore, it is called Sat. It is there when I am awake. It observes my dream. It is there in my deep sleep. That which is there in all three periods of time is called Sat. My true nature is Chit. I am conscious. My body mind is inert. My body mind is enlivened because of consciousness. So my true nature is Chit. My true nature is Ananda. Ananda does not mean happiness. The real word is actually Sat Chit Ananda. My true nature is limitless. When I am limitless, I have Ananda. Whenever I have limitations, I have Dukkha. So therefore, my true nature is Sat Chit Ananta or Sat Chit Ananda. We proceed. I will continue. So this whole chapter is about Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Synonym, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Viveka. Kshetrajna is same as Atma. Drik is the same as Kshetrajna, the one who is the seer. Drishyam is that which is seen. And later on, we will come to the conscious person is Purusha. Prakriti is the matter individual. So the same formula. I am other than whatever I experience. Now we come to the third verse. If you're including Arjuna's question, this becomes the third verse. And it is also called a Mahavakya. Whenever we come to such Mahavakya, Swamiji's explanation, one verse will take 1 hour. It takes a long time to internalize the message because Sri Krishna is trying to convey something truth about our nature. Chethana, please.
So in the third verse, Krishna says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Kshetra kshetrajna yognanam yat tat jnanam matam mama. He says, Kshetrajnam mam vidhi. Know me to be Paramatma. And where is this Paramatma? Sarva kshetreshu. It is the consciousness in all the bodies. So the container bodies are many and varied, but the consciousness within is the same in everyone. And then Krishna says, this knowledge is very useful and real knowledge, and therefore should be acquired by all people. Therefore, he says, Kshetra Kshetrajna Yognanam. This knowledge regarding the Kshetra and Kshetrajna is Tat Jnanam. That alone is the real knowledge, according to his opinion, Mama Matam. Now, any statement which reveals the essential oneness of Jivatma and Paramatma is called a Mahavakya. And in this third verse, Krishna is revealing this fact of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, and therefore this verse is called Mahavakya Shloka.
Thank you. So Shri Krishna begins. This is a very powerful statement for students of Vedanta. It is something that you need to memorize. And if sometimes the teacher gives these verses for us to meditate on. The verse. After verse will be like, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. This is a sentence which we have to internalize. What Shri Krishna is saying, Kshetrajnam, please remember, ma vidhi, I want you to know, is mam. Kshetrajnam cha api mam. The one who is seeing through my eye and one who's listening through your ears, the common factor in all of us, that which is all pervading, is the Shri Krishna principle. So whenever we say the Atma, the divine entity in all of us, so that divine entity in all of us is the Kshetrajna, is the same as Purusha, is something worth knowing, which is called Neyam. And Shri Krishna says, always have this distinction between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, between body, mind, and consciousness. And he says, if you have this distinction, he says, Ma matam, mama matam, this is my opinion. You hear the word matadana. Now we have come to election scene. Matam comes from my opinion. This is my opinion. And what is my opinion? This is this is a little elaboration. All of us are a mixture of body, mind, and consciousness. Consciousness is also same as Atma. The body mind is always changing, and it is the finite or the limited principle. Whereas the Atma or the consciousness in me is infinite and does not undergo any change. Let me ask you one question to all of you who are listening. We always see other people getting old, but we never realize we are getting old. That is because we log on to that principle which never undergoes any change. So when you look, we look at the body of others, but when we look within, we look at ourselves as, if you see your photograph when you are very small till now, you will see how much the body has changed, how much the mind has changed, how much the thought has changed. But there is something which we identify as me within this changing body-mind complex that is never changes. That is the real me. And that is what Shri Krishna wants us to know. Shri Krishna wants us to have Kshetra, Kshetrajna, any problem. We can temporarily give a solution. Today we solve a problem, tomorrow we have another problem. But if I log on to the Atma, I discover that there is no problem. Therefore, identify yourself as Atma, play the limited body-mind role. And this is the message. We now come to another term called Jnanam. Chethana, please explain what is Jnanam.
This is one of the questions asked by Arjuna. So we know that any knowledge is Jnanam. And in the philosophical context, it means spiritual knowledge. But in this chapter, Jnanam is referred to as virtues or values or sadgunas. Shankaracharya explains that if these virtues are present in us, self-knowledge is very easy to gain. Since these values promote self-knowledge, they themselves are called knowledge, hence Jnana. So in this chapter, Jnana means all the virtues or values required for gaining Atma Jnanam. This leads to living a dharmic life, which indicates that ethics and morality are prerequisites for Vedanta. Without values, one cannot understand Vedanta. Therefore, Vedantic study with values leads to transformation. Vedantic study without any values is just information.
Please continue. Can you elaborate on these 20 values?
Krishna has given 20 values in this chapter. So what do we do when we plan a holiday? We finalize on a destination, book accommodation, pack suitable clothes, etc. But before we start, we ensure that the vehicle we are using is fit for the trip. We get it fine-tuned, serviced, etc., and be roadworthy for the journey. And then we are set to go. In the same way, Sri Krishna has spoken about the destination and preparation, but are we fit for the spiritual journey? He talks about the fine-tuning and changes we need to make in our personality so that our spiritual journey is smooth and the destination is reached without any roadblocks. So to successfully achieve this primary goal, a person must adjust his lifestyle and it must align with his goal. So from verses 8 to 12, Krishna lists 20 values conducive for Vedantic study, initially and later for assimilation. Though all values are important, we'll highlight only a few here. So Krishna mentions 3 values that we need to cultivate, which convey the same idea at 3 different levels. They are amanvitvam, which is freedom from conceit at the thought level. Anahamkara is the freedom from conceit at the verbal level. And adambitvam, freedom from conceit at the physical or action level. Now, what happens when our expectations are not met? We resort to violence. So another important values we need is ahimsa, non-violence at physical, verbal, and mental levels. Now, if ahimsa has to be followed, then another value called shanti is required. What is shanti? It means forbearance or patience. It provides resistance to disturbances of the mind when the expectations are not fulfilled. That is why it is an extension of ahimsa. There are 2 aspects to shanti called titiksha. This means the acceptance without resistance of situations that we have no control over. And shama, although we cannot change the past, we do have the capacity to change the future. So if one does not develop titiksha and shama, he will have stress and strain in his life. Then Krishna says we need arjavam, that is uprightness or alignment of the physical, verbal, and mental faculties of our personality. That is, think, say, and do the same thing. Satyam is a subset of this arjavam. He also emphasizes the worship of teacher. He says acharya upashanam as very important for a spiritual seeker. Why? Because self-knowledge that we seek can be acquired only through the Shastras, and the Shastras can be understood only with the help of a guru. Therefore, worship or reverence towards a teacher is an important virtue for the students of Vedanta. Then spiritual pursuit requires both external and internal purity. So saucham is another important value to cultivate. One will also face obstacles. It can be actual or imaginary when pursuing any goal. The person with stairyam or perseverance is one who continues his pursuit despite these obstacles. But unless we have self-mastery over our body, mind, and sense organs, spiritual pursuit will not be a success. Therefore, we also need Atma Vinigra, as Krishna calls it, self-mastery or self-management. Atma here means the body-mind complex, and Ashtanga Yoga is meant for this purpose. Mere body orientation will cause obstruction to spiritual progress. It also must be remembered that it is only a means and not the end. So one must understand the problems of the body to be able to give up the attachment to it. Krishna calls this Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. We also have to develop asakti or non-attachment or detachment towards our child, spouse, house, etc. This is Anabhivisangha Putradara Gradishu. Krishna says, by not getting lost in the company of people and seeking quietude, Aratis Jana Samsadi, constant self-inquiry, Adhyatma Gnana Nityatvam, And with Ananya Yogyana Bhakti, unswerving devotion, one will know the benefit and value of Jnanam, Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. He then says, these virtues, together with the study of Shastras, constitute Jnana. Anything opposite to these 20 virtues is Ajnana.
Thank you. That was a nice summing of an important part of the 13th chapter called Jnanam. Normally, Jnanam means knowledge, but here Jnanam means values. Then we come to another unusual topic called Neyam. I'll have to go back to you. Please explain what is Neyam.
Neyam is that which is to be known by everyone. It is the same as Kshetrajna. Everyone must know the subject matter because it solves the fundamental problem of every human being, the sense of insecurity and the fear of mortality. The only medicine for this is self-knowledge. Brahmavid apnoti param.
We now come to the most difficult and the most important and perhaps the most interesting part of the 13th chapter called Neyam. Neyam means that which is worth knowing. So important that once you understand this, you will realize anything else in the world becomes relatively less important. Why? Because why do we suffer? Those who have had some spiritual knowledge, they say all our suffering is based on ignorance. And based on what ignorance? Lack of Atma, Anatma, Viveka. I've been given more importance to my Anatma. I've been giving a lot of importance to my body, mind, and giving less importance to the real me. And that is all the problem. What is the aim of all our Vedantic study? Once I have an idea which is the real me, I have to train my mind to claim that conscious principle, that enlivening principle, that because of which I'm able to speak, that because of which you're able to listen. That is the real you. The body-mind is only an instrument. The body-mind is only incidental. It is used for transaction, and therefore in Sanskrit it is called the Vyavaharika I, and the Atma is called the Paramarthika I. Because of my body-mind, my body-mind has a certain role to play. And because it has a role to play, we need to see our world as a stage, play our role, how? Sincerely, but not seriously. Claiming myself to be the Atma is the aim of all Vedanta. We begin with this most important introductory verse, that is the 13th verse of the 13th chapter, where Sri Krishna says, Neyam yat tat pravakshami. I will teach you what is Neyam. Yat jnatva amritam ashnute. Ashnute means you will attain amritam. You will attain to immortality. Why? Because you have now dissociated yourself from the mortal body mind. If Sri Krishna is able to clearly help you to understand that I have to see what is the real me, disidentify with the body mind, identify with the Atma. So, yet tat jneyam, that which is to be known, pravakshami, I will teach you. Yet jnatva, knowing which ashnute, you will attain to what? Amritam, immortality. I'm emphasizing this because of its importance. That means I'm repeating this. We are immortal, infinite, but we do not know that. That is brought to us by Guru and Shastra, and the Shastra is the Bhagvadgita. It is the 13th chapter which is telling us. This knowledge does not give us immortality because we are already that. It removes the veil of ignorance because we have identified with the body mind and we think we are this limited body mind. I am other than you. The Atma in you is the same as the Atma in me. So therefore you will see really no distinction between all of us. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. I am the Sri Krishna principle is the same one in all of us. The body mind. It is like the water is common in all the waves. The waves have different nama rupa. The shapes are different. Let me tell you one story that will tell you this importance of this distinction between Atma and Anatma. It is a story of a certain Sufi saint with his group of followers were crossing a desert. It was getting dark. They managed to reach an oasis. They were extremely hungry. They were looking for some food. Fortunately, a very rich man was hosting a banquet, a feast. And when you're hungry, you shamelessly go wherever food is available. And the rich man was inviting all his guests and welcoming them at the entrance. And he saw this Sufi saint and a group of his followers. And he looked at them and says, but then I do not know who you are. Suddenly, the leader said, but I know myself. And then he thought for a while. He says, how unfortunate it would have been if the whole world knew me, but I did not know myself. This process of Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Vibhaga is an assistance by Sri Krishna to help us to disidentify from the body-mind and identify with this body-mind. So, my true nature is Parabrahma, believe me. And my true nature has no limitations in space, no limitations in time, no limitations in attributes. I am nirguna. I am not limited by space, and therefore I'm been there from the very beginning. If there is a beginning, I will be there for the very end, till the very end. Now, this understanding that I am immortal, that becomes very clear to us. Then there is this 14th verse. The 14th verse is another beautiful verse. It is exactly like Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana, but coming from a Vedantic or a Upanishadic. Sarvata Panipadav Tat Sarvatokshi Shri Mukham. What Sri Krishna says, you know, in the Vishwarupa Ishvara, you see so many heads, so many eyes, so many hands. He says, when you see so many hands, this consciousness principle, Atma, me, I am all pervading. I am there in the form of all eyes, all heads. So we should not imagine the Vishwarupa as one body with multiple ugly heads and hands. But we need to see every hand, every leg, everything is none other than God. This is another story which will bring this idea a little more clearly. It happened during Second World War when a certain church in the United Kingdom was bombed by the Germans. And there was a wonderful statue of Jesus. And because of the bomb blast, the statue was broken into many pieces. All the devotees gathered after the war and they could collect all the parts. But what happened to the hands? The hands got so badly damaged, they could reassemble everything, but the statue of Jesus did not have hands. And when they did not have hands, they did not know how they could put up a statue without hands. But somebody had a brilliant idea. And they put up a quotation. He says, from now on, as I have no hands, all your hands have now become mine. And therefore, let all our hands be the hands that will serve the Lord, because the Lord has to serve through us. That means every hand, every leg, every head, every eye belongs to the Lord, and we are all instruments in the hands of the Lord. Then comes this beautiful verse. Among all the verses, if there is one verse that I would like to really meditate on, is this verse. Very profound. See, when you are giving a summary, we'll not be able to go into details, but I can only give you emphasis on these verses. Sarvendriya gunabhasham sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarva brichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. So what should we do? Take this verse, learn to recite this verse. Sarvendriya gunabhasham sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarva brichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. Now, once this verse is there in your mind and you have ruminated, then you go to the teacher. And of course, the teacher's audios are available. And the teacher will explain, Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. I, Sri Krishna, I manifest through every sense organ. That means whatever I can see, whatever I can touch, whatever I can feel is none other than Sri Krishna itself. Now, how is that through every sense organs you're able to Sarvendriya Gunabhasham? Our teacher Swami Paramarthananda gives a wonderful example. He shows his hand like this and he and we are able to describe many things, but we miss the obvious. And he gives you a hint. Because of that, you are able to see. Because of the light upon my hand. So you will see there is something other than the hand, that is the light. If there was no light on the hand, that you can see now, you are able to see because it is illumined, there is light on it. Now that light able to see the image, and from the image it goes to the brain as a thought, and that thought is seen by somebody, and that thought the whole step. I see so many objects around me. I take one thing for granted. I can see these objects only because they have been illumined. And there is a beautiful verse in the Kenopanishad which says, Pratibodha viditam matam. In every experience, I come in touch with the experiencer. So this verse in the 13th chapter, Sarvendriya Gunabhasham Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarva Brichaiva Nirgunam Guna Bhoktricha, is saying none other than this Upanishadic is Prati Bodha Viditam Matam. In every experience, I come in touch with the experiencer. I come in touch with Bhagavan. And then there is this most beautiful 18th verse, which talks of Jyotisham apitat jyoti. The original source of light, it can be the lamp here, or it can be sun. You remember there is a nice mantra during Arati, we say, Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto bhati, kuto yamagnihi, tvameva bandham anubhati sarva. That means, now I can see all the objects because of sunlight. Now, I can see the sun because of the light of consciousness in me. That means it is my consciousness that has lent existence to the sun. The more you understand, light is the light of all lights. I'm the one who's able to see the sun. That is the light of my consciousness. Even ignorance. For example, the sun can illumine everything, but the sun cannot illumine darkness. Because the moment sun comes, I know English. I do not know Russian. That means I am of consciousness to illumine ignorance. That makes it the light of all light. Deva Deva or Mahadeva. That is, we have completed the Gneyam part, which is the essence of all the Upanishads. And Shri Krishna gives once more a summary of Kshetra, Kshetrajna, which is to be known as Gneyam in the form of the concluding part of the 13th chapter, in the form of what is this Prakriti and Purusha. Chethana, please.
But they are occasionally used in Vedanta also. Purusha and Prakriti are very closely related to Kshetrajna. Ishvara. Now, the common features between Purusha and Prakriti are both are beginningless. That is, they have no beginning, anadi. And together, they are the cause of the universe. But there are several differences also, but four main important ones are: Purusha is the consciousness principle, whereas Prakriti is the basic matter. Purusha is free from all attributes, that is, it is nirguna. On the other hand, Prakriti is endowed with all properties, saguna. Purusha is not subject to modification or change, nirvikara, whereas Prakriti is influenced by time and therefore subject to modification, savikara. On Purusha for its existence, therefore it's called mithya. Therefore, everything that we experience, including the body-mind complex, is born of Prakriti. So, if everything is the product of Prakriti, where is Purusha? Purusha is the consciousness enclosed in the body, which is Prakriti. It is the witness or the experiencer, also called Kshetrajna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the end. I know this is a very difficult topic. We have made an attempt to tell the main distinctions between what is Kshetram, the field of my experience, the one who's the knower, the Kshetrajnam, which is the most important thing worth knowing, called Gneyam, which is the same as the Purusha or the consciousness principle, and that which is the experience is the Prakriti. Of course, you brought in some values, and there are some 35 verses which talk about the same thing. In conclusion, let me say about this beautiful 13th chapter. The aim of all Vedantic study is to help us to train our minds to claim the real me, the Atma, none other than Kshetrajna, the Sri Krishna principle, as the real me. So you can see this is why it's called the Mahavakya. That's why all these classes make you really feel great, because at least in these classes you realize I am not ordinary, but I am divine. The body-mind is only an temporarily available instrument. I have lived in this life itself in many bodies, and I do not know how many bodies I have lived in. Bodies come and go. I, as Atma, I have been there from the very beginning. I will be there for the very end too. So, in summary, once again, this is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Vibhaga. And what is the message? As body-mind, there is no permanent solution to any problem. And Vedanta says, identify yourself as many things to do. Do it. How do you do it? So we do it. Now, see, what is the remedy for the problem? If ignorance of my true nature and wrong identification with my body-mind is the problem, the remedy is knowledge and right identification. The knowledge is that I should know that the word I has got two components, the body-mind, which is the lower I, and the Atma, which is the higher I. This understanding of the distinction between body-mind is also called Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Vibhaga, which is in the Upanishadic language is also called Drik, Drisha, Vibhaga. Now this is again important. Take your time and listen to it. What should I do? I should train my mind to claim that I am Atma. That is why we have this Mahavakya, I am Atma Brahma, I am Atma Brahma. My body is only a costume, a role. My life is like a play or a drama, and this whole world is a stage. In detail again, having separated these two components, I should train my mind to claim that I am the higher I more and more. That is why this process is called Nidityasanam. This is the process. I have got the spiritual knowledge. It is like adding a sweetener. But unless I stir it with everyday meditation that I am Atma Brahma, I'm Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha, Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivaswarupaha. I am Atma, and the body is an incidental lower part of me, and it is only an instrument of my interaction. I should convert my body into a role, a life into a play, and the world into a stage. And thereafter, I should play my role as my life, in my life as the roles demand. Play it very sincerely, but not seriously. And always claim, I am Atma Brahma. In conclusion, we must remember that I am Brahman all the time. The word Brahman and Atma are synonymous. The word Kshetrajnam, Atma, Brahman are synonymous. The word Purusha is synonymous. Because of ignorance that I am born with, I claim this body, mind as I, and I lose sight of that fundamental truth. They require a sensitive and a subtle intellect to appreciate our true nature. That existence, consciousness, Brahman, I am, and that is claimed as Aham Brahma Asmi. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. That was really excellent. Really, the summary of the third chapter and the way you brought in